Welcome to POV, Planning and Organizational Visioning, bringing you insights from experts in planning, sustainability, and organizational management. I'm your host, James Rouse. Thank you for joining us for another episode of POV, Planning and Organizational Visioning. Today's guest is Justin Garrett Moore. Justin is an urban designer and the executive director of the New York City Public Design Commission. He has an extensive experience in urban design and city planning, from large-scale urban systems, policies, and projects to grassroots and community-focused planning, design, and arts initiatives. At PDC, his work is focused on prioritizing the quality and excellence of the public realm and fostering accessibility, diversity, and inclusion in the city's public buildings, spaces, and art. As the former senior urban designer for the New York City Department of City Planning for over a decade, Justin was responsible for conducting complex urban design plans and studies of the physical design and utilization of sites, including infrastructure, public spaces, land use patterns, and neighborhood character. He is the co-founder of Urban Patch, a social enterprise focused on community improvement and development, and a member of the urbanist collective Black Space. His professional affiliations include the American Planning Association, the Urban Design Forum, the Van Allen Institute, and Next Cities Vanguard. He also serves as a member of the American Planning Association's AICP Commission and on the boards of IOBI.org and Made in Brownsville. Thank you for joining us today, Justin.
Thank you, James. Happy to be part of POV.
Wonderful. So, you're originally from Indiana. You've lived a number of places across the United States throughout your life. Could you talk a little bit about your upbringing and how your experiences throughout these states has helped shape your worldview and got you interested in planning and design?
Yeah, so as mentioned, I'm from Indianapolis originally. I'm a Hoosier. So, it's interesting. In the Midwest, people, especially on the coast, kind of think, it's flyover country. But, America is a country of cities, really. Even in Indianapolis, my kind of identity growing up was that I was a city kid. It's really something that I think connects to all of us that get into this field is how are we kind of connecting? How are we using our spaces? How do we interact with one another? What's the kind of quality of life that people are having? And that was something that even kind of as a kid growing up, I sort of realized and acknowledged.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of interesting. You get to see different places and different environments, and you start caring, right, about, the things that make your community, and you start kind of paying attention to differences, frankly.
Sure.
And so I grew up in, what's considered kind of the inner city of Indianapolis, predominantly Black community. And, it was fine in many ways, but then as I got older, you sort of recognize like, oh, well, we don't have certain things. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Or, the quality of the things that we do have is different from when you go, kind of drive out to suburbs, or you drive kind of into kind of the historic neighborhoods downtown that have been reinvested in.
Yeah, similar. We had to drive up to Westchester County or take the bus just to do basic shopping or see a movie.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Exactly. So it's like it becomes like actually a part of your kind of awareness and identity a little bit. And so that's, one of the ways that I kind of got into field was actually working for my high school, where the school was getting a new gymnasium addition. And so there was a program at the high school where I got to work with the architecture firm that was designing the addition to the gym.
Wow, what a great experience.
Yeah, it was a very cool program. And so it was a way for young people to get exposed to a lot of different fields. And so I would go to like planning commission and school board presentations when I was 14, 15 years old. And so I had that kind of early exposure. It's like, oh wow, like there are people in the world that this is what they do, is decide what happens to all of us.
You had like a Scott Stringer type of opportunity when you were young.
Right. And so my original kind of point of entry was through more architecture, like because I was at that point really thinking like, oh, the buildings, what gets built. And that's a big difference. And so I went into architecture, and then I moved from, Indiana, Midwest, kind of inner city kid to Florida for college. I went to the University of Florida. It was, living in kind of a small city in the South.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then, you know, and it was just like
Stark.
this totally different world. And so, you know, it just became more and more aware of like how different places are. You know, kind of finished through college and ultimately came here to New York for graduate school. And it was like another like totally different environment. So like little by little, it's just I'm a city person. I love everything about them, how dynamic and different they are.
Has your idea of being a city kid changed by moving to New York? The reason I ask is when I was trying to figure out what to do after graduating college, I did this training to become a community organizer. And there was this woman from Brooklyn and this woman from Indianapolis. And this woman said, well, we have similar problems in Indianapolis. And the woman from Brooklyn was like, yeah, sure. And you know, I looked over and then I visited Indianapolis. I was like, no, this is a city. It's different. But so has it changed?
So that's a very funny story about that. So, you know, I've lived here in New York for a long time, and my partner is a native New Yorker.
Okay.
And so, like, and from Brownsville, native.
Oh, yeah.
From Brooklyn,
yes.
Right? In Brooklyn, that
it's the hood,
about, right? And so go to visit Indiana, and like all these years, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm a city kid. Like our neighborhood was really bad growing up, and of course he's like, oh, you know, whatever. But so we go, and you know, kind of walking through the neighborhood, and I'm like just walking through my neighborhood, so I don't have any issues with it. And he's, you know, a native New Yorker for Brownsville is saying, maybe we should go that way. And I'm like, what? And so it's different, but it's a different kind of tough situation, right? So there's a lot of vacancy, right? There's, you know, high rates of crime, actually higher than New York in pockets of Indianapolis, right? And so it was something that even he was uncomfortable in the inner city of Indianapolis because how our tough neighborhoods are different from the tough neighborhoods here.
When New Yorkers visit other cities for the first time, they realize how isolated some of these cities are, some of their neighborhoods, because they don't have the transit access, the retail access. You know, we complain about having to go to the suburbs, but, you know, it's pretty extreme there. Like my first time in St. Louis and East St. Louis of how we had to travel to find certain things when we were visiting. So I completely get that.
Yeah. But it was just a funny thing. And then after that, he was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. That's great. So you've built a pretty notable career focused on urban design. What is it about urban design that really interests you?
Yeah, so the great thing about urban design is that it brings together so many different fields and contexts and ways to kind of fuse all the different parts of your brain and heart, right? Like it's, you know, parts of it are very technical and you have to figure out and solve for, you know, problems that are complex or just interesting. It can be like a puzzle. But then there's also a part of it that is just very kind of open and sort of collaborative in a way that doesn't happen in a lot of fields. You know, urban designers are what I call the Swiss Army knives, right? So we've got all the little tools, and you know, we could do a little bit of everything, and it happens very often kind of in the beginning of a project.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of kind of interest and creativity in that process. You know, planning obviously is very similar, but you know, the kind of the creative side and the actual vision part and being a part of that is something that I really, really love and enjoy.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap with planning and design, and a lot of people for both don't understand necessarily the definition. They say urban design, it's just like, oh, you're automatically an architect. Oh, you're automatically into landscaping. Oh, you're automatically into interiors. And you're like, well, and it take a little step back from that. But I think that's a really good definition of it. Is just you kind of cover a lot of bases. You come in early, and it's one of those glue type of professions where you bring people together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now you're executive director of the New York City Public Design Commission. You know, you've been doing that for a little while now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But it was a pretty big jump from what you were doing
as
a senior urban designer. What do you feel you had in your previous experience that helped you prepare to lead a city agency, and how have you enjoyed it so far?
Yeah, so it's very lucky to kind of have this job. We're doing this interview in our office here in the attic of City Hall that no one knows exists. But
I discovered it today.
Yeah, but it really is one of the coolest random jobs in the city, in that we get to have a say and get to review all the different projects happening in the city, all the public projects. So we look at nearly 1,000 projects a year that we are reviewing in this office.
That's significant.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were as simple as a facade renovation for an old fire station to the East Side Coastal Resilience, the segment of the Big U, right? With the major multi-billion-dollar flood protection project. We look at all sorts of things. So I love the job because I never get bored.
That's excellent. That's a good thing.
We've got all kinds of great problems. We've got all kinds of bad problems, weird problems, interesting problems. So it's really great. But I also feel lucky in terms of kind of the background and experience that I had at city planning, that I feel like I've been fully kind of equipped to do this work. So I was at city planning for 11, almost 12 years, and I was working in the Brooklyn office. And so anybody that knows what's been going on in Brooklyn in that time frame is everything.
Yeah, transform the borough.
Really complete transformations. I mean, some of the neighborhoods and many different kinds of neighborhoods saw significant changes, and a lot of that was happening with the full kind of involvement of the Brooklyn Planning Office. So, I had exposure to all the different city agencies and players, exposure to kind of the politics of how things happen or don't happen or happen in certain ways, and just the diversity of projects. I think that was what really prepared me the most.
So you already had the established relationships and the frame of what you might be up against and taking on such a big role.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a great kind of background. And I also had, within the planning department, I was one of the designers that former planning commissioner Amanda Burton brought on design staff from maybe 5 people to like 20 people. Right?
Wow.
So I was one of those.
You almost never hear that, particularly in planning. Expanding fourfold.
Yeah. So she really made a commitment to design as a part of what makes the planning practice. And so, there a lot of the project and work that we did was actually very similar to the work that we do here, which is kind of the quality control of the design of our built environment. And so we had a lot of interactions with City Hall, frankly, because of her insistence that designers be, a part of certain conversations. And so moving into this role where I've grown up in my planning career with that model.
That's excellent. How many are you here at PPC?
So we're very small, one of the smallest city agencies, so there are only 8 of us.
And 1,000 projects.
And we review 1,000 projects. Yes, it is nuts. And so the way it's broken out is that we review projects on a monthly cycle, so it becomes a little more manageable, because it can be anywhere between 50 and 100 projects per month, and so it makes it a little easier. But we're a mighty team. We've got people with urban planning background, including a couple city planning alum.
Sure.
People with architecture and art background as well.
Excellent.
So it's a nice kind of combination of skills that we do our work in.
Does the mayor remember that you're up in the attic? How's the relationship?
Yes. Nice things. So the thing about the design commission is that we are kind of infamous in a way. We're sort of known as being, the elites that
you get a lot of flack.
We get a lot of flack, and so the mayor's office, of course, is very often getting this sort of brunt of like, oh my gosh, design commission is causing all these problems. Our project is delayed. It's more expensive, and like 95% of the time, it's really not the case. right? There are a lot of reasons a project